In this section, we're going to install the tail boom on the airframe. We're also going to install the vertical and horizontal trim fins, plus the inspection panels. When installing the tail boom to the airframe, it's going to be very important to hold this alignment because of the shaft-driven tail rotor system. Throughout the video, we're going to show you several places to check. Take your time and do the correct setup.
Refer to the Construction Manual, Section 6 for components and prints. Referring to Construction Print E09-2000, it shows 3 inspection doors. Measure each opening and allow for a 3/4 inch overlap on the 2 forward doors. The rear cover should be flush with the end of the tail boom. From the supplied material, measure and cut 3 inspection doors to the proper length. Radius the corners of the material. Hand form the radius of the inspection doors to match the tail boom with a large diameter pipe. Referring to the construction print, mark the hole locations of the Zeus buttons on the front 2 covers. The rear cover will be secured using 832 nut plates and screws. Note: when locating the holes, be sure the Zeus springs and the nut plates do not interfere with the existing rivets. Remember, the hole for the Zeus spring will be at least 3/8 to 7/16 of an inch, so make sure the hole location is not too close to the edge of the tail boom door opening. When satisfied with the fit, locate and drill 1/8 inch holes for the clecos. Drill the holes in the cover first. Then transfer the holes in the cover to the tail boom. Drill 1 hole at a time, then cleco that hole, then drill the next hole. Refer to Section 1, Construction Practices on proper installation of Zeus buttons, grommets, and springs. On the rear cover, locate and drill 6 holes. Locate the holes so they do not interfere with existing rivets. Refer to Section 1, Construction Practices on proper installation of nut plates and screws. Locate the following components and parts. Reference construction prints. Note: when mounting the tail boom to the airframe, be sure to hold the measurement to the square drive tube and also hold the correct tail boom angle. Use the digital protractor supplied with the kit when checking these angles. Before using the digital protractor in this section, perform a complete superset calibration as recommended by the manufacturer's instructions. The aircraft center line can be found by using the center of the forward cross tube and the center of the cross tube at the rear of the airframe where the tailboom support tubes are attached. Level the airframe laterally. Use shims as necessary. Pull a string tight just above the floor. Use plumbs to place the aircraft center line on the string. Note: radius the ends of the tailboom attachment brackets slightly before installation. Insert the tailboom attachment brackets into the airframe. Occasionally, it may be necessary to file the inside diameter of the airframe to fit the attachment brackets. Notice the two brackets with the greater angle are the upper brackets.
You'll notice when we install the tailboom in this section, we're going to be using a gantry and a hoist. But we'll also be using a gantry to lift the engine out of the engine crate, to lower the shaft into the airframe, and also hold the shaft in position when we install the large sprocket. Now you certainly don't have to use a gantry to do this. You can make a stand out of wood, or you can sling something from the ceiling to hold your tailboom.
Very important. Use caution when positioning and mounting the tailboom to prevent it from falling, causing damage to a bulkhead or the skin. Slide the tailboom into the attachment brackets. This can be a tight fit. Once the first bulkhead is within the 4 brackets, use a quick grip clamp to help draw the tailboom forward. Some brackets may have a small clearance between the tailboom and the bracket. Use a toggle clamp with a spacer to draw it into position. Make a loop with a piece of string to go around the tailboom end and hang the plumb line from the loop. Builder tooltip. Use a small pulley to help center the plumb line. With the tailboom inside all 4 attachment brackets, center the end of the tailboom over the center line string. To find the proper tailboom angle, measure the angle of the fore and aft square drive tube and add 2.5 degrees. Also note, the number 1 bulkhead should be square with the fore and aft square drive tube. Use the alternate zero feature on the digital protractor. The intent is to have the number 1 bulkhead square or at 90 degrees to the fore and aft square drive tube. Correct gearbox mounting. Raise or lower the tailboom to maintain the correct angle. The distance from the back of the square drive tube, where the top of the secondary drive mounts, to the front of the number 1 bulkhead should be 23 inches. Check to ensure that the flat part of the tailboom attachment brackets are over the ears of the number 1 bulkhead, and that the flat extends beyond the front of the bulkhead. With the skids leveled laterally, check the vertical alignment of the tailboom. Use 2/4-inch bolts in the gearbox mount holes in bulkhead number 1. Install 2/4-inch bolts with 2 nuts and tighten in place. This will allow you to place a level across the 2 bolts. Do the same in the gearbox mount holes in bulkhead number 5. If necessary, rotate the tail boom to maintain 90 degrees on the protractor. With bulkhead number 1 level vertically, check bulkhead number 5. Note, it is possible that bulkhead number 5 may not be level vertically when compared to bulkhead number 1. The intent is to have the best vertical positioning of the 5th bulkhead, while maintaining the location of the tail boom attachment brackets over the ears in the number 1 bulkhead. When satisfied with the position and tail boom angle, use 2 toggle clamps with spacers for the upper 2 brackets, and C-clamps on the lower brackets to hold the tail boom in place until the bolt holes are drilled and the bolts are installed.
As you can see, we're about ready to drill the holes in our airframe, brackets, and the tail boom. This is a very important alignment. It affects the gearbox mounting and the tail rotor shaft position. When you tighten these clamps, it may actually move on the airframe, so you want to be careful and constantly check for that. So we have 5 things we want you to check before you actually drill these holes.
1. With the skids leveled laterally, check the vertical alignment of bulkhead number 1 and number 5. 2. Check that the flat part of the tail boom attachment brackets are over the ears of bulkhead number 1 and that the flat extends beyond the front of the bulkhead. 3. Measure the angle of the square tubes fore and aft and add 2.5 degrees to verify the angle of the top of the tail boom. 4. Measure the distance from the back of the square drive tube to the front of bulkhead number 1 and verify it is 23 inches. 5. Make sure the tail boom is on center with the airframe. When satisfied with fit, locate, drill, and install the tail boom bracket bolts per the construction print. Note, when locating the hole locations for the attachment brackets, it's not necessary they end up in the center of V-shaped flanges of the number 1 bulkhead. However, the builder must maintain the minimum edge distance for the hole location. Minimum edge distance is 1 1/2 times the diameter of the bolt. Start with a pilot drill bit and then open the hole with a letter D drill bit. Use a letter D reamer to final size the hole. Note, it may be necessary to use extra washers on the 1/4-inch bolts to prevent the nuts from bottoming out. Drill and install the 3/16-inch bolts that secure the brackets to the airframe. Before drilling, check the tail boom center line and distance from the rear square tube. Builder tooltip. Use a drill guide that can clamp to the airframe tubing. Using a drill right helps maintain the proper center alignment in the tubing. Use a 3/16-inch reamer for the final hole size. Use caution when tightening the bolts and do not over-torque the bolts. Note, the lower tailboom bracket front bolts must be horizontal through the 1-inch airframe tubes. They will also be used to hold the radiator mounting straps. Do not drill these 2 bolt holes in the airframe at this time. The location will be verified when the radiator is installed later. Reference construction print E09-2001. The 5th bulkhead requires you to install 4 3/16-inch bolts. The 2 upper are drilled through the bulkhead. Make sure they do not interfere with the gearbox when installed. The 2 lower bolt holes are to be installed through the stringers and bulkhead. Locate the following components. Reference construction prints. Verify the airframe is level laterally. A small hole is pre-drilled where the horizontal trim fin mounts a 1/4 inch below the tailboom center line. Install a small straight rod with equal amounts extending from each side of the boom. The rod should be level. The distance from the top center of the number 1 bulkhead to each end of the rod should be equal. Offset the hole or holes as necessary to correct the alignment. Using this method will ensure the horizontal trim fin is level and 90 degrees to the aircraft center line. Enlarge the hole with a unibit to fit the trim fin spar, making sure that the spar will be level when installed. The hole will be slightly larger than 7/8 inches. Note, you'll need to notch the pilot side hole to allow for the rivets to pass through. Make 2 4-inch diameter doublers from 25 thousandths aluminum and drill a matching 7/8 inch hole in the center of each. You can cut the material from the roll of 25 thousandths sheet stock that was included with the tail boom. Drill 6 to 8 holes at equal distance in the 4-inch doublers. To match hole alignment, place the doubler on the outside wall and drill 1 hole and cleco in place. Then drill the remaining 1/8 inch holes and cleco in place. Now remove the clecos and sand the area around the rivet holes before installing the rivets. 3M Scotch-Brite works well for this. Move the doubler to the inside and rivet in place. Use steel 1/8 inch rivets, part number E00-6201. Locate the winglet halves and doublers. Note, there is a pilot and passenger side. Fit the fiberglass winglet halves and doublers together with Clecos. Some sanding may be necessary for a better fit. Here are the winglets Clecoed together. Be sure and clean all the inside surfaces and doublers with acetone. Cut and fit pieces of fiberglass mat. Mix up some fiberglass resin and saturate the fiberglass material. Coat the inside surfaces with resin. Lay a strip of fiberglass around the inside edges of the winglet half. Place the doubler in position and install the Clecos to hold. Install the other winglet half and Cleco to hold.